I'm very grateful for all of you for coming today, and I'm extremely happy to have your association.
Recording in progress.
We're recording this for posterity's sake, and we are interested in churning the ideas and the inspiration so that we can find the principles through which we can continue to grow the Sankirtan movement. I first beg for the mercy of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who showed by his example that everything is possible and that we should assume that it can be done. What can be done? We can spread the Krishna consciousness movement to every town and village. And those who take up this mission, following the footsteps of His Divine Grace and try to serve Him, will find innumerable benefits to their spiritual life, and will find that actually life is quite blissful in the jet stream of a pure devotee, and that following the order, even if imperfectly, is a kind of rope that pulls us up out of the material world and back to the spiritual world. Do you all believe that? I know you do. That's why I'm so happy to be here. So much of what I'm talking about today, as I mentioned, is for posterity. These are principles many of you already know and that we're working on together and that we're experiencing together. But I wanted to put it down in a digital record so that we can expand these ideas and make sure they're available to people everywhere so they can duplicate what all of you are doing, which is simply amazing what you're doing. I offer my respectful obeisances to the Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsimhadev, and pray for their mercy that we can work together to expand the Sankirtan movement. Om Tat Sat. I see so many of you that I know and love, and please know that I'm embracing you within my heart, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Hare Krishna. So today, my goal is that we imbibe some of the main principles for Sankirtan growth and for personal growth. They're one and the same. You can't separate them. And that we also codify things in such a way that we can continue expanding the Sankirtan movement. Prabhupada writes about this in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement, is to go on and unlimitedly expanding the preaching of Krishna consciousness. It just so happens that in taking up the process of Sankirtan, there are multiple benefits. One of them that I've noticed for myself is that the book distribution and planning for expansion of Sankirtan in all its different aspects, outreach, is a kind of nutrition for building a community as well. In other words, a community, as I wrote earlier, one second. Their definition of a working definition of community, it's a group of individuals who are developing trust by working together towards a common goal and set of ideals. And it just so happens that because Sankirtan, especially book distribution, has such clear objectives and the values are so clear, although when we talk about trust and common objectives, we do so in a very broad sense. We're all under the umbrella of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we all believe in the Bhagavad Gita and follow it, and the chanting of Hare Krishna. Book distribution becomes even more specific. It's a very measurable service. In fact, Prabhupada writes about it in his 7 purposes of ISKCON and says that it is a stimulus for the aforementioned 6 purposes, some of which have to do with community building. So I'll be talking about it in that context as well. So now that I've given that preamble, I'd like to just ask a couple of you to mention in a sentence or two why you came here today, just so we can get a feeling for the group. And if you'll volunteer, and if it's not inconvenient, Anna Kulseva, for an individual to unmute, you can raise your hand, and then Anna Kulseva will unmute you, and then you can speak. Just I'd like to hear your voices and hear what your mood is today. Krishna Kirtan Prabhu.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. I came here, Prabhu, is very clear that we want to be successful by following the great leaders who has done it. As you mentioned, together we can do it, but at the same time, I want to follow the path which you have set and learn more to apply those principles in our place. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, for being such a stalwart. And I see Subhadra.
Haribol. I came to try and find out the nicest way to present the Bhakti community while I'm out.
Oh, that's nice.
You mentioned it this morning, but I was already going to ask that.
Okay, just for those of you who don't know, Bhakti Community is a successful follow-up program that gives an opportunity for people who are new to Bhakti to join a community online, and also now that the pandemic is abating in a few areas, we're also having in-person meetings, including seminars and retreats. And we're finding that people who are seekers and have some interest in spiritual life need a place to go to become full-time devotees, and it's working quite well. So one of the ways that we're doing that is when we meet people out on Sankirtan, and all the devotees eventually do meet somebody in a day, or at least within the span of a couple of days, who are very serious and sincere. And then you can give them a card for the Bhakti community and also get their information and call them up, and then walk them through how to sign up and get into the Bhakti community programs, which happen on Mondays and Thursdays. And then there's a women's group on the weekend. And we also recommend that those who invite people to a Bhakti community also show a program to also show up themselves, so the person feels cared for. Okay, Nityananda Prabhu. Is that the Nityananda Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So we're setting up a new Sankirtan community in the north, about an hour from here. And so I thought I would get a nice lot of wonderful pointers from you that will help us apply this knowledge in a way that, we'll sort of get a faster success rate, not have to go through a longer learning curve, like that.
Beautiful, Prabhu. Just knowing you here gives me inspiration. Thank you. Divya Ananda Prabhu. You're on mute or something.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Prabhuji, I'm here for 2 reasons. One, the temple I'm associated with, how we can build a community for, especially around book distribution. That's one reason. And second is, we are also building a center where I live, and we've been doing programs here for past 3 months now. And so I'm interested in building a community around book distribution. And I was telling actually Shama Moini Mataji that I was thinking about reaching out to you. And then I saw this flyer come out that you're doing a session. So I got really excited. I'm really looking forward to this session and learning a lot from this session on how to build the community, and especially because now this is a new community that we are working on. So how we can instill some of the principles for book distribution from the beginning, and do something great for Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Nice, Divyananda Prabhu. And if you don't get everything you want or need from this program, feel free to reach out anyway. And we'll be happy to embellish or, increase the communication to help in whatever way you can. I can say that it's helpful also when you're starting in a new community, you're starting from scratch, a new palette. And I can also say from experience here at ISV, because we started from scratch here, that centering around book distribution is a very healthy way to develop a community, to have that nucleus. So well done. Thank you. We'll perhaps take one more if anybody has it. Okay. Now I'm going to, yes, Mangalartik, Hare Krishna.
Hi Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, my obeisance is quite Prabhupada. Prabhu was just hoping to get some inspiration for goal setting for next year. I know you
Okay.
guys put amazing workshops on that, and then also the main thing was how to get the community, get a wider community engaged in book distribution, how to get people inspired.
Okay.
So just not like, so it's not like one person mode, but there's a wider audience because there's a lot of leadership support, but how to get the community into the zone of doing a little bit, everybody does a little bit, like how to kind of make that.
Okay. Yeah, for goal setting, it's the main principle is decide what you want and write it down. Don't be afraid to decide what you want and write it down, because time goes by. And if you procrastinate, you lose a day and then a week, then a month and a year, and then a lifetime. And if you gather together the devotees who are concerned with your community and you decide what you want and write it down, that's the first step to making it happen. And as far as getting a wider base, it requires several principles that I'll go into, but it spells the word GATE, G-A-T-E. And it starts with goals, and then there is advocation, that's the A, and T is training, and E is empowerment. So you can remember GATE, and I'll go into more detail in it in a minute. But the more we apply those principles in a given community, the more you'll find that you'll get wider and wider participation. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Jai Krishna Prabhu and Bhagavat Ashraya Prabhu. Okay, I better not start doing all the names. Okay, now we will start with a few slides. And I'll look at the slides, I'll talk about them, and then I'll jump back into the group so that we can answer any questions and have reflections if need be, to try to imbibe some of these principles. So it's helpful to have this map. And I'm finding that wherever we are working around the world with leaders, when we show a map of the geographical area that we're concerned with to spread Krishna consciousness in, that there's an immediate sense that let's fill in all the gaps. And so knowing that we have one of the best fields for book distribution in the world, because we still have a lot of freedoms here. There are many countries that don't have the opportunity to go out and just talk to people. We have freedom of religion and freedom of speech. That's invaluable. And we can't take it for granted either. And we also have a fairly educated population and easy access to many of the places. So just keep in mind that this is our preaching field, and it's a good idea if we look at ourselves as a team and think about how we can work together to really complete the mission or push it on as far as possible, the one that Srila Prabhupada started. He came to North America first. So we should definitely be leaders in the world, especially for book distribution. That's just my humble opinion, but I don't think that it's highly debatable. Okay, next. when you get a pill like a mint or even an aspirin, it has mostly filler. And then there's a couple of grains of the active ingredient inside. Maybe it's menthol or maybe it's the aspirin itself. That's what actually makes all the difference. So I always find it helpful to find the proven principles for instance, in this context, a healthy and thriving spiritual community. What is it that makes it healthy? What is it that makes it thrive? And today I'll be talking about the active ingredient. Next. Some of the secret to that is in this statement that Prabhupada made. There's in 1975 in June, and Prabhupada had come to Los Angeles to make a point, and he invited other GBCs to come there. And this is the time he inaugurated the Chaitanya Charitamrita Marathon. And you can see this iconic video where Prabhupada is on the Vyasasana, and there's a sea, S-E-A, of devotees surrounding him. And they're leaning in, obviously, to hear what he has to say. Why did he call them all there? What's the point he wants to make? And at the right time, during his arrival address, he said, "So kindly help me, this is my request. Print as many books in as many languages and distribute throughout the whole world. Then the Krishna consciousness movement will automatically increase." Something about that automatically catches my attention. What do you mean? What did Prabhupada mean automatically? The other part is fairly clear too. He was enthusiastic we print as many books in as many languages. And someone made the point during one of our celebrations of World Gita Day a couple of years ago that every town and village actually means every language. We can't expect to penetrate every community unless we have every language. So imagine how expansive our thinking has to be to cover the world with book distribution. And the point about kindly help me, when a pure devotee asks for some help, he's offering service. And if we just try to do this, follow the request, print as many books in as many languages and distribute. So print and distribute. Then he says it'll increase automatically. So increase means our communities will also increase by the process of book distribution. And I'll attempt to explain why that is when we take this order seriously, that our communities also increase. Part of it is that, if we can come back in the room for a minute, people need service. And when we have book distribution as a substantial aspect of our community and available, it's ever increasing. There are always jobs when you have Sankirtan because it creates opportunities. New people come, there's infrastructure to be built. There are any number of services that open up for people to help expand the Sankirtan. And the mission statement is to reach every town and village. So it's not small. The mission's not going to be over in our lifetime. And we find also that when new people get the spirit of Sankirtan early on, it helps them to develop on solid ground as devotees. There are Kanishta Adhikaris who are only accustomed to mostly the theoretical aspects of Krishna consciousness. And then there are Madhyama Adhikaris who get real experience. And anybody can get that by going on book distribution. There are ways in which you can tell the difference between those who have had an opportunity to go out to distribute books and those who haven't. Those who have get a kind of maturity in Krishna consciousness that you can't get anywhere else. And therefore, it's very helpful to introduce the principle of outreach and that books are important and that Prabhupada put a priority that by distributing books, the movement would expand automatically. That, of course, includes reading the books. It's a 50-50 proposition. The two go together. And I always mention it as rice and dal. When you put rice and dal together in combination, you get 42% more nutrition, according to Jamuna's cookbook. And similarly, when we have hearing and chanting and an opportunity to go out and distribute to others, then there are miraculous benefits that come. Okay, a couple more slides. And this is an answer to why our communities need book distribution to thrive. Next. It's because Sankirtan, book distribution, which is literary kirtan, books are a delivery system for the holy name. Writing is an abstraction of speech. It gets written down, it gets delivered through a well-known delivery system called the book, and it goes out into human society. We just heard of a man last week. Malini, our co-Sankirtan leader this morning, was talking about how our devotees were going from shop to shop, and they were in an Arabic-speaking neighborhood and showing the books. And one of the shop owner actually was very friendly, and he said, yes, you could put some of your books here. We'd like to distribute them. And then a man came out from behind and said, Jai Shri Krishna. And he was excited to tell his story about how he had found 2 years ago a Bhagavad Gita in a garbage can. And he said he took it out and he cleaned it off and he put it in his truck and he carried it with him, carries it with him wherever he goes. He reads it from it every day. And he said it saved his life through the pandemic. He said, I forgave the person who put it in the trash can because it was meant for me. Now, when devotees go out, they see miracles like that. That sounds like made up, like the stories that devotees bring back. His Holiness Jaipataka Maharaj the other day told a story about a devotee distributing a book to a person, and about 3 seconds later, there was a drive-by shooting and the person was shot dead holding the book in their hand. So it was a rival gang member. And it sounds like made up, these stories, but it's not. These things actually happen on Sankirtan. So the oxygen, when devotees go out, we can come back into the Zoom. When devotees go out, they see miracles. So there's a kind of romantic feeling when we first join the Krishna consciousness movement. When we first come, there's magic in every word every devotee says. Everything we see, the freshness of the altar and the wonderment of having prasadam and just having the good fortune of being in the association of devotees. And that's a feeling of gratitude and the miraculous nature of the world at every second. So what happens after some time is that romanticism, it starts to wear off, because once I get familiar and I start thinking I'm entitled, and I forget about it. But when we go out and we give Krishna consciousness to other people, then we remember that again and again, because we see it through their eyes. Just like the person who got a Bhagavad Gita in a garbage can, or numerous other stories. I mean, you can line them up. Vijay Prabhu just wrote a book with thousands of anecdotes of miraculous happenings. And that's where you see them on book distribution. When you go out yourself, you get a front row seat. So that's important for devotees to remember that. We can even talk ourselves out of the Krishna consciousness movement. oh, there's certain statements in Prabhupada's books, people might be offended, or and we do have to address those things when we're teaching other people. But the fact is, we can focus on all these negativities and then forget the actual incredible nature of what we're distributing, but we see it in the eyes of others. So when devotees go out on book distribution and they're able to see that for themselves, they bring that back into the organization. So it's like a body needs to breathe. The oxygen comes in from the experience, and then we expel the carbon dioxide, which is any kind of niyamagraha, or sense that of forgetting the importance of the Krishna consciousness movement. And also, devotees become refined when they go out, because it's a kind of a test. When we present to other people extemporaneously, then we will notice our shortcomings wherever there's gaps. We have to have that. Nobody matures without that. So when we have people who come into the Krishna consciousness movement, we have to have organized way that they can safely go out together and experience what it's like to present, and then to find where the gaps are, where they need to improve. That makes them hungry. And they learn how to answer objections. That's when they come back in. That's why they're really listening, because they went out, they presented, somebody had an objection they couldn't answer. Now they want to hear the answer. I always like to say a hearing and chanting session is best when we come out with more questions than answers. And that's what happens when we give our congregations the opportunity to go out and present to other people. And it's also a way that Krishna helps people process their various desires. They go out, they may have some, I may have some anartha, but when I go out and I distribute Krishna consciousness to other people and I see the anartha in others, it looks disgusting actually. And I think, I don't want to be like that. These are the kind of miracles that come from going on Sankirtan. It's a protected environment. It's a Krishna conscious bubble through which we can actually see how the modes of nature work in others and in ourselves, and then we become purified. With that, the members of our congregation, even if it's a fledgling congregation, get this kind of oxygen and they bring it in. If you don't have that, you get a closed organism that's not breathing, and you'll notice that it starts looking anemic or peaked, and that it doesn't have the life that it needs to have. Sankirtan is life. Okay, let's look at a couple more slides. So oxygen is important. We have to breathe. I'll just note that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had the same mood. He told his mutt basis that they should go out every day and knock on some doors. He told them that when they're rejected, or when they face any kind of friction, that they get spiritual blood for their spiritual body. Next. Mission-oriented management. So management means solving problems. And that's what it is. I didn't know that when I first started getting into management. I thought I was doing everything wrong. Then I realized, with the help of mentors and also common sense, that management means problems. So when we have a mission that we're trying to accomplish, it makes solving the problems worth it. Otherwise, it becomes an utterly thankless task. Unless we're going somewhere, we're trying to achieve something that's measurable. The kinds of problems that we face when we're dealing with a large group of people in a community becomes oppressive and onerous and not worth it practically. However, when it's mission-oriented management, which means we're going somewhere. We know where we're going. And again, book distribution is very measurable in that way. And we have a clear idea of which marks we're trying to hit. Then whatever problems come up become worth it to solve. And we don't feel that we're overwhelmed by the various problems. The management means managing the results of our outreach. Mainly, we're meant to go out and reach people and give them the opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness. And then all the infrastructure and all the other programs that we have are really to manage the results of that so that people come back in, and then we have facility for them and for the veteran devotees so that they can repair and increase their hearing and chanting. Next. So this is a way to reframe book distribution, which I feel is realistic. And that is that book distribution is high sadhana. It's part of what we do. There are other organizations that have imbibed the spirit of going out to save people from themselves and from the material world. A couple that come to my mind right now are the Mormons, who send people out for a minimum of 2 years, last time I checked, to go out and fend for themselves and preach. And also there's the Jehovah's Witness, who go everywhere. They send their people out. It's part of being a Jehovah's Witness. I would argue that part of being a devotee is following in the footsteps of Haridas Thakur and Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya. If they can go door to door, we certainly are not beneath it. In fact, it's a glorious service to go out and connect to those who are living their lives, those souls who are living their lives ensconced in the modes of material nature, and to give them an opportunity to come back to Godhead. This kind of conduct is the best of behavior in devotees. In fact, Jiva Goswami says, devotees who think like this is Sat Achar. It's the best behavior for devotees. Krishna says it in the Bhagavad Gita, Atma pamyena sarvatra samam pashiti Arjuna sukham va yariva dukam sayogi paramomataha. The best yogi is the one who has empathy for others and understands their plight in the material world. Sukham va yariva dukam. He knows, she knows what they're going through, their ups and downs in the material world, and therefore has empathy. One more bit of evidence from Shukadeva Goswami observing Lord Shiva, who is trying to save the world, who did save the world from the poison that came from churning of the milk ocean. And he said, Tapyante lokatapena sarava prayasojana parama aradanantadi purushasyaki. That this is the case, he said, with great souls. The great souls take trouble upon themselves in order to save others from the plight of the material world. And he says, Parama Aradhanam. This is the best type of sadhana. It's the best kind of worship you can do, is to go house to house, to walk through a gate and approach somebody's house. You don't know who's going to who's going to open the door when you knock on it. And when you go out, there's always this sense that what's going to happen now? What about my convenience of staying home? And you say, no, we take some trouble to go out into the great unknown, to reach other people, even if it's a phone call, or just taking the trouble to advocate for book distribution. You're putting yourselves out and saying, yes, this is a good idea, you should do it. All these ways, we step into the realm of the great souls, the Mahatmas, who live to do this. Shukadeva Goswami, Karuna Ya, he was motivated by a sense of mercy to walk through the world and give people an opportunity to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you can memorize this phrase and present it to your congregation, that book distribution is high sadhana. It's not compartmentalized, that it's some other thing, but it's what we do, actually. It's what Prabhupada did. It's what It's what he put as the seventh purpose of ISKCON, through which we would achieve the aforementioned principles. That is the first six that he named. Before I go to the next point, I'd just like to hear what you think about this reframing of book distribution as high sadhana. How does it make you feel? And have you heard this before and applied it? Give a couple comments, reflections about it. Yes, Mangalarti.
I was thinking about what you were saying in terms of high sadhana. And I was thinking like it only works, at least for me, like if it's sadhana, like if it's every day, but then you get burnt out in 3 days and then you can't keep up with it. So when I hear sadhana, I think daily. And then when I try to do it daily, then 1 month out, I'm like wiped out. So I was wondering if you can help elaborate on that a little bit, so I have a saner approach to it.
Sure. We find that a once a month approach is also helpful. Any regular interval. Regularity in sadhana is important, and daily certainly is extremely potent. And the most potent, that's why we do it. But I find with book distribution and community building that if you have it at least once a month, that you create an opportunity for everybody to go out, you give a lot of notice so that people can prepare for it, and there's not a direct hit with other programs that happen, so it doesn't get scuttled at the last minute. And you make it fun and easy so everyone can go out together without a lot of expectation. For instance, the way we've set the bar is that when you go out, that all you have to do is touch the pavement, and then you're done. So the devotees go out and they ritualize it. They touch the pavement all together and take a picture. And then they feel the burden's lifted. I don't have to perform. All I have to do is go out, touch the pavement. Everything after that is extra. And when devotees are doing extra things, then they feel at ease to like, okay, let me just try it. I'll experiment. They got nothing to lose. But we found that pace when we started the monthly Sankirtan Festival here at ISV worked very well. At first, the devotees came back and said, this is so ecstatic, let's do it every week. And then we decided, no, let's keep it every month. And then a few months later, they said, it's too hard, let's try it every other month. But we decided, no, let's just stay steady at 1 month. And the benefits were huge. And we developed a kind of momentum by keeping it at once a month because we always had a point in time we were building towards. And having that point in time we were building towards kept the whole community focused on, yes, it's important to go out and reach to other people. So I do recommend the monthly Sankirtan Festival. It really works. I know you do it every day anyway, but I'm just saying for everybody. I saw Tukaram Prabhu and I'm overjoyed. Prabhu, are you there?
I'm here,
Krishna.
Maharaj.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Maharaj. Just as a reflection, initially people were asked, when I dropped on the call, people were asking you about forming intentional communities and bhakti communities. And, we're asking you for advice about that. I'm assuming they were saying things they wanted to hear about because you didn't directly answer their questions. It was what we were going to talk about during the discussion. And my mind was working through it. And I was thinking, well, Bhagavat Shravan and Swadhyaya are traditional parts of somebody's sadhana. And so we could argue that book distribution is required because people have to hear the Bhagavatam, so therefore they have to have a Bhagavatam, and they have to study, and therefore they have to be books so they can study. And I was trying to, think about how we could, mix book distribution in with a Panchanga Bhakti type framework. And so that it made sense to me. And I thought I was being charitable and broad-minded. I'm used to seeing people try to fit square pegs into round holes and push their sectarian agenda forward as the end-all be-all. But then when you spoke and you explained that every town and village, we might call our core prophecy or our core prediction or our core mandate or our core mission statement, whatever you want to call it, requires every language. which means you have to have all these books in all those languages. And then you explained book distribution is high sadhana because it gave you a goal to work for. It made it not just about you, but it was about something bigger than you. And you're always giving to people. You're always keeping it fresh. You're moving past the Kanishta platform into a Madhyam platform where you're interacting with people. It highlights for you what works and doesn't work in terms of a lifestyle. And then it makes you grateful for your sadachar. These realizations you have about the fundamental nature of book distribution and why it was Prabhupada's 7th goal of ISKCON and how it accomplishes all the other 6 and how it keeps everybody on their toes. I found them to be nothing short of brilliant. And it wasn't a square peg in a round hole. It showed really deep realization and thought on your part about book distribution and how it's integrally linked, how this new technology is integrally linked to our core mission and statements that go back thousands of years in our books before printable books were even available. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks to Karam Prabhu. That was very helpful, as usual. And I'm glad you brought up Panchangam Bhakti, because when I saw the community here at ISV, and you were here in the beginning, I was thinking, how is this going to hang together? Everyone has to work hard here at Silicon Valley. The jobs are inordinately hard. They keep people working. We have a little touch time during the weekends. So then, of course, the verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching Sanatana Goswami, he says something amazing, that here's 5 out of 64 that even if you don't have complete faith in them, but you just have a little contact, then you'll be successful in your bhakti. And these are the 5, core principles: hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, the association of like-minded devotees, living in a holy place, associating with devotees, chanting Hare Krishna, worshiping the deity. And then, we kind of made that part of our formula, that we live on that verse in the community, because you can't do everything. But if you do the right things, and that's the active ingredient principle, then everything that needs to happen will happen. It's so magical. In fact, he presents that verse, doesn't he? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as being absolutely miraculous, that these 5 things will. And so it just so happens, as you were pointing out and reiterating, that book distribution fits into that. And I saw early on when we kind of tested this to the limit, that new people would come and we'd say, yeah, come out with us the first day even. And they'd come back and they'd say, yeah, what's in these books? Can we read them too? It almost happened immediately that they want to read it. In fact, I'll just tell you a little secret for entertainment, because when I look back on it, it's kind of funny. At our Sunday programs, we used to have 50% of the program would be a presentation about the Sankirtan movement and the Panchanga Bhakti. And then we'd stop and have an intermission. We say, anyone who wants to try going out and presenting to other people, we have cars waiting for you outside. You can go and just get in a car. We'll take you out. Malini's laughing because she was there. We'll take you out for about 40 minutes and bring you back in time for Nishringa prayers and prasadam. And half the temple room would empty out, and people would get into cars and go out. And some of them, sometimes it was their first time they ever walked in. And when they came back, they're like, this is great. Can we do this more? And we saw this principle that there's, when you get devotee association when it's mission driven, there's this kind of energy that comes up that's really powerful. Thank you again, Tukaram Prabhu. Nandini Kishori.
Yes, Maharaj. So it feels like the old days are back. Just today we did a workshop at Krishna House, and brand new girls. One of them was Christina, and she came because she got a book in Little Free Library that Ranga Devi had put in a year ago. And she's going on books in a van. and their car is loaded with 1,500 books, and they're starting tomorrow at 6 a.m. So it feels like the old days are back, the answer to your question.
Yeah, you could say the good old days. Thank you. That's good. Yes. Thank you for the testimonial. You know, this going out, it generates this sense of guyam akyati prichyati. There's a sharing that naturally takes place. It kind of overflows when you're having these very direct experiences distributing Krishna consciousness and hearing from others when you're out there about what they're going through. And that's one of the main tenets of community, really, is these 6 exchanges. Prabhupada says, Dadati Pratigurnati principle, the 6 principles of gift giving and accepting and revealing one's mind in confidence and so forth. These are what Prabhupada says are the foundation of the Krishna conscious movement. So they're embodied in the spirit of book distribution, gift giving, accepting something in return, and then that carries on that same mood when you bring it back into the 4 walls of our tighter community. Okay, was there one more? I don't see any more hands up. So let's go to the next slides. So you can try that on for size, that book distributors high sadhana, and it builds community spirit. Next. And this is the principle that Tukaram Prabhu also reiterated was about. Because I had mentioned it originally, the 7th purpose, it fulfills the other 6. The rising tide lifts all boats. So there's a way in which the energy of Sankirtan then filters into the various other aspects of the community. There are residual benefits that get shared throughout the community. Next. And here it is, the 7th purpose of ISKCON, just to make sure we're not fudging anything, with a view towards achieving the aforementioned purposes to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. So it's holistic. They all go together. Book distribution is one of the 7 purposes, which we keep as a view to achieving the aforementioned purposes. So it's important that it's there. It does lend to developing the others. Next. As more and more of you increase in sincerity, similarly, Krishna will more and more reciprocate by giving you intelligence to serve him nicely. So I'll come back in the Zoom room for a minute. And that is just that the Guyamakyati Prichyati principle. I find in community building, whether it's small, or a small community or a large community, it's important for devotees to have time together to ask questions about the philosophy and discuss what's in Prabhupada's books in a safe environment. That means they feel open to discuss things, to bring up their doubts, and that there's competency. There's competent people there that can address their doubts, because we're a faith-based community. And when people have the opportunity to develop trust and faith, they hear together, they hear each other's problems, they watch others and see how they're also benefiting. And they also want to get that kind of benefit. I started a program where young people could come together and hear and chant, learning for instance, all the verses from, say, Sri Ishopanishad, Sri Upadeshamrita, whole chapters of the Bhagavatam and the Gita, things like that, and then having time to look at the purports and discuss them. So this is kind of a segment of our community. And I noticed that when the devotees have time and take the time to come together and speak together and learn things together, then there's a tightness in the community. This becomes one of the principles that holds everything together. So I was talking to some of my god brothers and god sisters who got initiated by Prabhupada when they were very young. Some of them were 12 or 14 years old. And they were part of a younger generation of devotees in ISKCON. And I asked them in a group, because I was trying to discern what inspires them or where were we lacking. And one of the sutras they came up with for community building and encouragement was, they said, when they see peers doing great, that was the distilled statement. When they see peers doing great, then they also feel inspired. They also said that empowerment was a very important aspect. At that time in history, they felt there was no future for them. There was no way they were going to be asked to do anything important in the institution. And so these two principles are important, and they're also a part of the growing or an ever-expanding book distribution movement in a community. Partly, as I conceptualize it, and as you know, if you've looked at my book, Our Family Business, it's 50% about strong sadhana and 50% about outreach and book distribution. They go hand in hand. And when the devotees have an opportunity, create opportunities, and for longer and longer periods of time, whenever possible, more frequency in hearing and chanting, when they're able to sit together and discuss the philosophy and actually hear, we notice that the light goes on for many people. And that's when they develop faith. And when they see others doing well, they want to emulate and be like that. And then when they go out together to distribute, that solidifies the whole process. The two go together hand in hand. Yeah, I remember we had a program at my house for a long time. For about 13 years, every Friday, people would come over here, and I watched how new people would come. They'd sit, listen. They'd start to they'd feel open to discussing the difficulties in their life, and everybody has them. And then when they found solutions by discussing with other devotees, and they started to feel supported, that's when the sense of community became really thick. And then I started talking about how one of the services is to go out and give this to other people. And you know what they said? They said, "You mean we can do that too?" And I was really charmed. And I said, yeah, we can do that too. And then it was just a matter of organizing it. And I thought, well, how are we going to organize so they can go out and have a safe experience? And when we did, I did take them out, and I saw that brought it to a new level. When they came back in, our hearing and chanting together in the group was noticeably elevated, because they had that other part of the experience, being able to go out and share it with other people and overcome obstacles, and just see how other people either got completely turned on by it or completely turned off by it. And both are topics that are addressed in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's how people assimilate the philosophy fully. And that's how a community becomes really cohesed. Okay, let's see a couple more slides. The magic mantra to change it all. Yes, what is it? Please reveal. Assume it can be done. So I'll just give you a history of this before we show the video. It's a short video, although I'd call it a major motion picture. This, we noticed at the very beginning of the pandemic was very helpful to, there's two ways one can go. You can say, it can't work for the following reasons, and then I saw there can be an unlimited list of reasons why something can't work. For instance, during the pandemic, there were a lot of reasons that we could come up with why we couldn't continue book distribution. Ever increasing list. But then we just decided to make an experiment and say, let's just assume that it can be done. And then put the whole list, the other list, just it doesn't apply because we're going to assume that it can be done. And why? We assume because we're just instruments and it's Lord Chaitanya who wants it done. And he's known in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as the greatest spiritual capitalist. So here in Silicon Valley, we have venture capitalists. You can go to them when you have a good idea and ask them for support. And maybe they'll give it, and you can start your company based on that. Lord Chaitanya will always give it. If you go to him and say, look, I'd like to get a chip in this game, this Sankirtan program, and here's my idea, here's how I want to expand in my neighborhood, and here's how I want my community to be involved. Lord Chaitanya will write you a check. He's behind a desk with a pen, and he'll write you a check so you can do it. So feel free to assume it can be done. This you can put as a wallpaper on your phone. We're also going to be distributing temporary tattoos. If you like it enough, you can make it permanent. And it's the title of a new book that's coming out very soon, Assume It Can Be Done. And here's the major motion picture, especially for this marathon.
The fool denies where the wise man tries. His doubt is the seed of his own demise. The bold one achieves what the timid soul dreams. When failure's not an option, success is guaranteed. 'Cause we can cover the earth just like the sun. We assume that it can be done. It's all possible if we know it to be so. To follow Prabhupada means to chase the rhino. There's no place for fear in this divine atmosphere. Go locate a Premadhana, the Lord has appeared. We cover the earth just like the sun. If we assume that it can be done. 'Cause we cover the earth just like the sun. If we assume that it can be done.
So this mood of assuming it can be done is an attitude. And I would argue that it's the quintessential attitude that makes communities great, that makes devotees want to be part of the community, is that mood that we're going somewhere and we're doing something that seems quite impossible, but we're assuming it can be done. That creates a kind of electricity that you don't get anywhere else. It's exciting. And besides that, what we're doing is so worthy of the effort. There may be other kind of pep talks you get in other corporations for selling some product or something. And that's necessary for building community, for people to have that sense of purpose together. But after all, what are they selling in the end? Our product is unassailable and we know it. And so when we develop this spirit, it can be done, take risks, be a spiritual entrepreneur. That spiritual entrepreneurialism is what really makes the community exciting and makes people want to be part of it. And also, as entrepreneurs are always looking to engage energies. When people come in, they already have a job. There are already jobs open because we're going somewhere and we've got something to do, something to achieve. And book distribution is so measurable. It lends well to this, to make a goal and then to say, we're going to achieve this together, then everyone gets a job. Okay, a couple more. Did you like the video? That's not self-serving to ask. Okay, let's see if we have a couple more slides. I have to keep track of time and keep moving a little bit because I know you're all busy. So this is, there's a place in the chat box you'll see where you can download the video and send it out. You can also get this for your screensaver, as I have here on mine, and thousands of others have already downloaded it. The tattoos will be coming soon, and you can put it on your car if you want. Okay, it's not a bad mantra to live by either. 4 keys to Sankirtan growth, which can be applied in all the areas of the community. So here they are. Spells gate. You must set goals, because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, and we flounder. And Prabhupada mentions it in a principle he gave to Karandar, which is that in a community, you must always have a fresh challenge so that the devotees will want to rise up and meet it. And that's simply done by coming to a consensus about a goal. And we notice that as soon as you set the goal, it's like flipping a switch and the energy comes in. As soon as the devotees agree to do it, yes, here's the goal, we're going to do it, then the whole community becomes enlivened. And so don't be afraid to come together. What is goal setting? Decide what you want and write it down. And with book distribution, again, it's very measurable, but it should be something not less than 1 and something more than 0. That will flip the switch. The numbers are fairly arbitrary. You have to set some goal. Next is advocation. Advocation is really important. It has a vak in it, which means speech. Speech starts the universe. It's the logos that gets everything going. It makes everything ordered, is speech. And when we learn to speak it and say, this is a good thing, especially from the leaders, when leaders who are so busy and oppressed by solving problems, or bathing in the nectar of solving problems, I should say, wonder what they can do, they can advocate. A great soul who's leading and from the front, that's redundant. A great leader can step up and say to his or her community that this is a good idea, I endorse it. If you say that as an empowered leader, that's what moves the energy. So advocate, be an advocate. And if everyone learns to advocate, then it will flow, just as the universe flows from Krishna saying, go for it, Brahma, you can create it. It'll happen. Bhadram Te. Next is you must train. And it's helpful to train devotees in all aspects of devotional service, speaking specifically about book distribution, when devotees know what they're doing and have a clear idea that there is some simple principles through which they can present Krishna consciousness to others through books, then they feel inclined to try it. And finally, empower people. Don't be afraid. When you see somebody with excitement who steps up and say, yeah, I have an idea. It could be done like this. They say, do you have any experience in it? Say, yeah, I know how to do that. It's like, okay, you're in charge. That's your area. You can develop it. Empower people. When you see it, fan the spark. Prabhupada was expert at it. So these are 4 principles that will help you grow Sankirtan in your community, which will then have the residual effects I've spoken about so far. Okay, next. Setting goals. What gets measured gets improved. Keep moving. And goals are potent. Just remember, when you set the goals, flips a switch. You can try it in your own life. Just set a goal and you'll see immediately the energy changes. So communities need to be able to see where they're going. What is the next thing we're trying to achieve? And one of those can be book distribution. And I'm saying that in a community, when you have a measurable goal for book distribution, that it will affect all the other ways that people operate in all the different aspects of the community. And to that, we came up with this pithy little phrase, your pledge is your wedge. And so it's practical, because even if you make a small pledge that I'm going to do this much, then it opens up a space for many other good occurrences. And you increase your capacity just by starting somewhere. On a wedge, the small end is tiny, but it starts a process through which it opens up more and more space. And then it begins to become a mainstay for the community. This is an important mantra, because oftentimes people think that goals are something so lofty, or maybe I won't be able to achieve it. But reminding people, it doesn't matter where you start. If it's greater than 0 and not less than 1, you're okay. And you can test it yourself and see how this works. Next. We set goals because of what it makes of us in striving to achieve them. So while we're working towards a goal in a community, for instance, in a small community where the devotees come together for a meeting and the temple president says, let's work together and make a goal, then all the devotees feel free to get behind it. And then they set a goal that they're going to divide up the community into different areas and empower people in each one of those areas to set their own goals. And then now you have a bunch of empowered people who are going towards goals. And while they're doing it, they're going to have to develop more capacity. They'll find where the gaps are in their own lives and abilities to work towards their goal, and they'll improve. And that's one of the ways in which the whole community becomes stronger, is while we're striving to reach the goal and making incremental improvements, that everything else gets better. And in a community where things are noticeably getting better, people want to do more than they have to. In a community where things are staying about the same, you're on a plateau, then everyone does just what they have to. And when things are getting worse, then people start thinking about bailing out. They don't want to be part of a losing organization. They don't like that. Next. Okay, before I go into these next principles, I just want to take a little feedback and make sure that I'm connected to reality here. Do you have reflections or questions about what I've mentioned so far? Reflections, questions, or another direction you want, or something you want me to go deeper within? Krishna Kirtan Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you so much. It really helps keeping us in track as a leader, and the goal or focus oriented. We are the educational society. We practice bhakti at the same time. Creating education is one of the primary service. And without books, and then we will not fulfill the mission. And I want to thank you for bringing us back and after this pandemic, and very grateful keeping us in track. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. I just want to point out the pandemic's never over. It'll never probably will be over. The world is the way it is. And it's always churning one way or the other. And so that's part of the Assume It Can Be Done campaign, is that there's no external circumstance that can slow down our progress. It's only our attitude that can slow it down. If I assume it can't be done, that's when it stops. And what did Prabhupada do he got on a boat at 80 or at 70 years old and came to America with no facility. And so he assumed it could be done. That's where the electricity is. That's the movement. Without that, we don't have anything that's really exciting to offer to people. We need to have that mood. Whatever happens, we are assuming can be done because Lord Chaitanya is the one who will bring the energy to us. And when we set a goal that seems impossible, and then we achieve it, and that's not to say we should make crazy goals that we know we're never going to hit them, but they should be reasonable, but a little bit of a stretch. That's why Prabhupada said a fresh challenge. Once we reach it, then we develop this faith that this movement is not running just by management. It's running by Lord Chaitanya's mercy. That awareness has to be there for a community to be exciting, for you to walk in and feel like something's happening here and I want to be part of it. Thank you, Krishna Kirtan, for you're great. Subhadra.
In regards to your point on spiritual entrepreneurship, last week when I was the fly on the wall in your meeting, you and Tukarams with the Orange County devotees, just sitting there and hearing the way the meeting went, it was so empowering. I thought of like 10 ideas just here in San Diego that I could do without having to get permission or get other devotees to, it just felt so empowering to hear you guys talk to those devotees. And anyway, that's what I wanted to say. It's just very
I felt the same thing. And obviously what I was referring to before without mentioning any names was that meeting we just had, and it was palpable, right? And so that's kind of an anecdotal evidence what I'm talking about. There's electricity in that kind of meeting. There's advocation, there's empowerment, there's goal setting, GAT. What's the T?
Training.
Yeah. Okay, Mangalarti.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Just in your video, you showed success was one of the things that came out, and it's just been something I've been thinking about. And I was just like success can be the drive for success and the samskara for success in our lives could be actually like I'm acceptable because I'm successful kind of mentality can be there. At least I know for myself, grew up like that as a kid. So I don't know about other devotees, but it's like a mentality. And then I've also heard that a devotee may or may not see success in their lives, like Jatayu or someone, like, what is seemingly success, they may or may not see it, but you still have to go on. So one thing was somewhat useful, it was very useful, but half I feel like was answered by you saying goal setting, because I was thinking, some people in the community might think it's not successful. Some people in the world of ISKCON, sometimes you may not think this is successful or not, but if you set a goal, then you know that I said 10 potatoes and we've done 10 potatoes and that's it, that's success. But I was wondering if you can comment a bit about this mentality of success and book distribution. Like sometimes you can go out and just do nothing all day. So how do you approach that?
Success and succession go together. This is from the same root. So the definition, it's all in the definition. We define what success is. Somebody says, oh, this person, they're not a successful devotee. And then Krishna says, Apichet Sudaracharo, Bhajate Mamananyabhak. Yes, he is, because he has the right intention. And so we can, through the scriptures and through the eyes of Krishna and the great acharyas who see the potential in every living entity, we can define success so that it accommodates people's participation. That's why I said, I tell people we're not going out to distribute books. That's not the goal. That's not success. The success is developing the wherewithal to walk out the door together, arm in arm, and we're going to touch the pavement. Because what happens generally, we talk about it theoretically, and then it means book distribution. I'm just giving this I'm using book distribution. It's the tip of the spear. It's one of the elements that helps build the community. So now we give some training, people come, they're excited about it. And now we're about to walk out the door. Let's say we're going to go out and we have 3 places that we're going to go to. It's all mapped out. And then someone at the last minute, someone says, oh, my mom's calling me. I got to go make her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I can't come. And then like 70% drop out. And why? If you interview them, they'll all say the same thing. My mom called me to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And any excuse will do. But the mind just doesn't want to be inconvenienced because there's a sense like I won't be successful if I walk out the door. And the reason is because we didn't lower the bar enough and say that you're successful just for walking out the door. If you step over the threshold and you walk out the door, you're already successful. That's why we have the ritual of touching the pavement. Take it all off the board. Sincerely take it off the board. Don't expect them to do anything, especially in the beginning. All those other kind of things where they're going for goals will naturally grow from their confidence, and they'll want more goals. They'll have to, just like when you're lifting weights, you have to increase the weight. Otherwise, you're not going to grow, right? And our communities don't grow if we don't have something measurable that we're going for. You have to be able to see it and measure it and feel it. There always has to be some weight on our shoulders that we're trying to, of course, you take a rest in between. You have to recover also, right? But still, then they need the next challenge. Otherwise, like, what are we going to do now? So tell the devotees, we're not going out to distribute books. You're successful if you touch the pavement. Anything you do after that is completely extra, 100%. So redefine success for people and for yourself too, because it's so easy to get downtrodden and think like, oh, I'm no good. I'll never get this. But think how Krishna thinks. It's like, Neha bikramanashosti, pratyavayona vidyate swalpam apya siddharmasi. He says, su alpam, you do a little bit and you're good with me. So go from a higher vision, and you'll find that when you take that when you apply that in a community, that people start getting enlivened. You catch everyone doing something, even the smallest thing, and you say, you're great for doing that. Well, how did you think of that? I saw you walk through the parking lot and pick up that piece of paper that was lying there. You're amazing. You know how to clean Krishna's temple. You know, if you take it from that point of view, encourage people based on that, that's success. And that's what grows in a community. That's that feeling of encouragement, that we're going somewhere and that everything counts. Okay, let me show a couple more slides, because I at some point have to come to a conclusion. Not that I haven't already, but okay, Katvanga consciousness. I like this one because there's a way in which I think that, oh, it's too late, I don't have enough time, but Katvanga got a lot done in 1 minute. So don't think that the small opportunities that we have aren't important. Do what you can with the time you have. You may be surprised. So next is Jaladuta consciousness, which means catch your own Jaladuta. Prabhupada stepped on one and he went across the ocean. And look what happened. It's the hero's journey. So you may not get on a big boat, but catch a little one. Catch the one, whatever one's appropriate for you. It's not little or big. It's all absolute. It just means introduce this kind of consciousness to your congregation, because community is based on this kind of common sense that we're going somewhere. And so make your Jaladutas available to people. Advocate. Talked about it before. Your words matter. What you say is going to manifest. So be really choosy about what you say, and know that even saying a little bit, a couple words in encouragement, will go a long way. Remind everyone of the mission regularly. This is a principle. It's called the Jericho principle. It comes from the Bible. When people were building the wall of Jericho, they had to be reminded why they were building it every 30 days. Otherwise, they forget and they just feel that it's laborious. But if you remind them, this is why we're doing this. So that's part of advocation. If you bring it up and you tell them this is why we're doing it, they'll get excited. Not just excited, but they'll be guided properly. Where attention goes, energy flows. Get that tattooed on the other arm. Besides, assume it can be done. Because this one will take you all the way to the finish line. Oh, there is no finish line, it's eternal. But whatever you're trying to achieve, if you remember this in the community, if you want your community to go in a certain direction, for instance, I asked Radhanath Maharaj once about his community in Chopati. I said, how did you get the devotees to be like they are? I mean, I kind of knew the answer. It's by his association. But he said, you have to inculcate. For instance, you'll notice in every lecture, he talks about humility in his community and how you should do selfless service. And after some time, because people know that's where they're giving their attention, that's how it goes. You must train. Training is important. And part of that training is how we do is more important than what we do. Next. Okay, our capacity is unlimited. There's a way that the goals we're setting are arbitrary in some ways because it can always be bigger, could be smaller also, but we're trying to develop capacity. And the more that the individuals are working together to develop capacity that's measurable, then that's how much we're giving the community an opportunity to grow on this principle of a fresh challenge. And be givers. This is a giving movement. Panchatattva plundered the storehouse of the love of God and distributed and ate its contents. And the more they gave it out, the more it increased. We've got nothing to lose and all to gain. And we've got everything we need. We just need to distribute it, and that's how it increases. Always better service. Pick 3 items every month that you want to improve. Have a list, have it visible in the community and say, these are the 3 things we're going to improve this month. And then make sure you hit those goals. They can be tiny. It doesn't matter how small they are, the improvements, but that's what makes the difference in a community is they feel like things are getting better, not staying the same and not getting worse. They're getting better. Fix things. Think of new ways that things can work well and work methodically. Okay. Empower people. This comes naturally in Sankirtan. Encourage the heck out of everybody. You can write a few encouragements in the chat box and see how it feels. If you don't like it, you never have to encourage anybody ever again. Sankirtan is for everybody. It's not compartmentalization. There's not some Sankirtan team somewhere that's going to do it all. We're all part of the Sankirtan movement. Sam, Yak, Kirtan. We do it together. It's all inclusive. Next. Team goals are more important than individual accomplishments. We've tested this in at least 10 places. And the more we emphasize the team over the individual accomplishments, the more people want to join the team, because not everybody can be a superstar. But if everyone feels like they're counted as part of the team and you compete against a team goal rather than just the top individuals, then you'll expand. I guarantee you. It's a proven principle. We've tested it over the last 15 years. Next. That was a beautiful picture, by the way. This was a logo Prabhupada saw for Sherman William Paints, and he said that should be our logo too. So teamwork makes dreams work. It's a way that working together, we can actually measure how we're covering the earth, and we can achieve it. There's the GATE principle. Goals, advocate, train, and empower. Your gateway to Sankirtan growth, which I'm considering to be an important element for expanding the community. That there's a nexus between the two that's extremely important, and it is unassailable. The connection and the mandate is unassailable. Okay, next. Our preaching will be measured by the quantity of books we distribute, so continue ever increasingly. There are a plethora of statements like these from Srila Prabhupada, so feel free to step into that region and measure your success. Keep going. North American remittances have had a steady climb and now on a slight plateau. And we've analyzed why there is a plateau in North America. And one of the reasons is that there are some leading temples that continue to expand, and then there are others that are going down. So the bottom 10 performing communities are trending down, and the top 10 are trending upwards. So we would like a broad-based improvement. And if you're at the bottom 10, it's okay. Bottom, top, everywhere is transcendental, but make improvements. Tend to the shop. Make sure that you know what's going on and that you're making some improvements. It will only help your community. What to speak of your standing in the spiritual world, that you have the acumen to distribute the Krishna conscious movement. It's one of the measures for success in an individual devotee, what to speak of a community, of how they're doing. And book distribution is arguably one of the important elements. Next. Right now we have a global goal, 2.2 million we're going to distribute Bhagavad Gitas. And we're working on all these things together. There's 7 continents, and on each one of them, we're developing a 5-year goal for increasing. I just came back from the UK. The leaders there, 60 of them from various countries, got together and came up with a plan for the whole continent to increase over the next 5 years. That, by the way, is a continental community, and they feel connected because they're working as one team, just as much as North America, when they did the same thing about 12 years ago, when we did the same thing, I should say, we felt that sense of community, that we're going somewhere together. Important. Anything else? Okay. There are lots of programs that work, and you can get the details from the North American Sankirtan leaders team, but they're emerging due to the genius of various devotees. And we can go through the last slides. So go back to that total pledges. This is for 2021, right?
Yes,
151. This is below what we pledged and did last year, North American leaders. So please take a look and see what you've pledged so far. Remember Katvanga, he did it in the last minute. There's still time. There's always time. But please keep pace if you can. At least don't lose what you did last year. We're well behind on pledges of what we made last year, right, Anukul Seva?
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah.
Okay, so the message here is take a close look at what you've got going for your community and see if you can at least do what you did last year, if not a little bit more. And a lot of devotees each doing a little bit will be helpful. By the way, we distributed combinedly around the world 35,432 sets of Bhagavatams. Although our goal was 25,000, we hit 35,000 by applying all the principles we mentioned. It's a great cause of spiritual self-esteem for our movement all over the world, that we can work together. Monthly Sankirtan festivals, here are the ones that we are tracking around the world. All the places that have committed in their communities to at least once a month go out. Please add your community to this list. You can contact us through the link you'll see on the chat box. And Motel Gita is a huge program. You can collect hundreds, thousands of dollars, millions people will give to help distribute Bhagavad Gitas to motels. Keep going. And take the next steps. Please, a call to action. Have a designated Sankirtan lead in your community. It'll really help. And he or she can connect to our North American Sankirtan Leaders team. And make sure you make a pledge and organize to get it done. Make a pledge for this Live to Give marathon. And what is the pledge? Something more than 0 and not less than 1. If you haven't made a pledge, you're missing out on some really powerful internal energy. So make sure you're in the game. Okay? One last little video clip here. Sorry that it's me. Dear devotees, we have a fresh challenge upon us to distribute at least 2.2 million Bhagavad Gitas. That would fill up a football stadium, but it's got to go out to the world because people have to read this in time before they leave this world with no knowledge of what the purpose of life is. Let's work together and remember, every book you distribute counts. Everyone on the planet is invited to participate. After all, this is the Sankirtan movement, and you are a Sankirtan devotee. That means you can distribute Bhagavad Gita too. If you do, you'll become Krishna's favorite. He says so in the Bhagavad Gita himself. We have Gita Jayanti on the 14th. It's now called World Gita Day, and we'll be celebrating the results on the 18th and 19th of December. The main point is that when we have a goal we're working on together all over the world to distribute Bhagavad Gita, it's the best yajna, it's pleasing to Krishna, you'll be happy, the people who receive it will get benefit, and the world will become a better place. Let's work together. It's a global marathon. We're all on the team. Let's go for it. Devamadava, Prabhu, any comment on the whole thing?
Hare Krishna. My obeisances. Forgive me, I'm off camera. I'm laid up in an unbecoming way. It was a wonderful immersion and a reminder of the opportunity in Sankirtan. And people ask this question to me more often these days about community building. And it's something vexing because what's happened here in Ypsilanti has been more a miracle in my mind, happening in spite of me than any particular design or intention. But if I can see one thing that we've done well, it's that we celebrate Sankirtan. And that's what I see you emphasizing over and over and over again, reminiscent of Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying that we should print a pamphlet every time somebody distributes a pamphlet. That's the kind of celebration we should make for any time somebody receives anything that is directly Krishna conscious, and inviting them to reawaken their bhakti. So the idea of celebrating Sankirtan and setting a celebration needs to increase a little bit every year for it to feel like a celebration. So allowing ourselves to make it a little bit bigger and a little bit better without becoming pretentious, still recognizing that that's expected. If it's spiritual, it should be growing. And so that's what I'm leaving with today, is this sense of the importance and value of growth and goals, not as something mundane, but as something that lets everybody recognize the transcendental nature of what we're doing.
So nicely articulated, as usual, Devamadava Prabhu, and congratulations on building such a robust and spiritually awake community. It's really beautiful. And I'm glad that you brought up that it's a miracle, because every community is different. We can't absolutely apply principles from one community to the next. Well, no, we can. That's my main point here. But I'm saying that there are different circumstances in all communities. It's not, they don't all come together in exactly the same way. However, there are principles that help our communities to grow and to come together in cohesive ways. And arguably, and very obviously, because they're already, it's in one of the basic principles of our ISKCON in the list of purposes, is to rally around this principle. So Shamahini, please mention anything in the last minute here that I've neglected to say.
Thank you, Prabhu. We just want to bring devotees' attention to two events that are happening this week. As we all know, we're celebrating the Live to Give campaign with a global goal of distributing at least 2.2 million Bhagavad Gitas as a One World team. This week, on the 14th of December, which is the day of the Gita Jayanti, or the World Gita Day, there will be a yagya in Kurukshetra, where the names of those who've participated will be offered during the fire sacrifice, and they would also be broadcast, scrolled in the broadcast. And on the weekend, December 18th and 19th, is the World Gita Day celebration, which is the global Gita experience. Communities from all over the world will be will be putting together performances to highlight how the Bhagavad Gita has influenced people in their community, in their countries. And we have a participation from several different countries, all the way from New Zealand to here in North America. So please do tune in to catch that broadcast, December 18th and 19th. And finally, a reminder, if you haven't submitted a pledge for the Live to Give campaign, please do so now. And if you need any more resources, we've sent in contact information in the chat window. We're eager to help in any way possible. So please get in touch. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So just to make it crystal clear, where do they make a pledge?
They can make a pledge by emailing us. They can email us at info@bbtbooks. I'm going to just put the email, or they can visit the website for the marathon, which is prabhupadmarathon.com.
And how big's the pledge?
Something more than 0 and not less than 1.
Correct. Otherwise, you miss out on the special energy and mercy that comes. And what about this colorful wallpaper pack?
Yes, so you can download your free Assume It Can Be Done phone wallpaper, so that you always remember that it can be done. And we can post the link once again in the chat, as well as the link for the video that was premiered today, Assume It Can Be Done. Please share it along and see it every day, so that we all remember together that it can be done.
Anukul Seva, any last word?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for putting together the presentation, and Shamahini for keeping everything moving from behind the scenes. Thank you all devotees for taking the responsibility on your head for spreading the Krishna consciousness movement by building community, by expanding Sankirtan and all the other programs that are part and parcel of the Krishna consciousness movement. I feel lifted by being in your association, and I'm deeply grateful that you came here and gave your valuable time. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev. If you so desire, please empower all the leaders here in North America to have the courage to move forward and expand the Krishna consciousness movement together as a team. Please give us unlimited resources to help to expand your glories all over the world. Thank you very much for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everybody who agrees with this prayer in part or in whole, please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Panchakalpaduruscha, Kripasindhevaccha, Santakoti Vaishnavini ki jai. One more thing. Do big.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.